A very good evening to you all. I, Manoshi Sinha, on behalf of Indic Academy, welcome you all to today's twin event, a talk on the Sarasvati Civilization by Major General J.D. Bakshi, and launch and talk on the book Curse of Gandhari by Aditi Banerjee. I would like to request Major General J.D. Bakshi to please come on the stage and take your seat. Oh, I'd like to request Aditi Banerjee to please come on stage and take the seat. Now, I would like to request Shilpi Tiwari ji, a urologist by profession and convener Indica Delhi chapter, to take his seat. I'd like to request Karan to please felicitate Major General G.D. Bakshi with a bouquet of flowers. I would now like to request Karan to felicitate our guest Aditi Banerjee with a bouquet of flowers. I would now like to introduce you to our guests. We have Dr. Conrad Elst amongst us. A big round of applause for him. He has contributed a lot towards the cause of Dharma through his research studies and research works and literary works. The Major General G.D. Bakshi needs no introduction. Each and every Bharatiya from each and every corner of Bharat know him very well. He is the author of 37 books on topics ranging from history, politics, spiritualism to military and poetry. He wrote 2 books on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He has contributed over 200 papers in numerous prestigious research journals and national newspapers. Under his commandment, around 126 terrorists were eliminated in Kashmir and adjoining areas. He was honored with the Vishisht Seva Medal for commanding a battalion in operations in Kargil and the Sena Medal for operations in Kishtwar. Major General Dr. Gagandeep Bakshi served 2 tenures at the Directorate General of Military Operations. He was the first BGSIW at Headquarters Northern Command, India, where he dealt with information warfare and psychological operations. He appears regularly on TV talk shows as a military analyst. He is the editor of the Indian Military Review. A big round of applause for him. Major General G.D. Bakshi ji has written a foreword for my book Saffron Swords, which celebrates the glory of 52 of our warrior ancestors from across the country. And this book is a bestseller now. Now, I would like to introduce Aditi Banerjee. Aditi Banerjee is a practicing attorney at a Fortune 500 financial services company. She co-edited the book Invading the Sacred, an analysis of Hinduism studies in America. She is based in America. She has published several essays on Hinduism and the Hindu-American experience in publications such as Outlook India and Swarajya. She earned a Jewish doctor from Yale Law School and received a BA in International Relations, magna cum laude from Tufts University. The Curse of Gandhari is her latest book. I would like to tell a few words about Indic Academy, the organizer of this event. Indic Academy is a non-profit seeking to bring an intellectual, cultural, and spiritual renaissance based on Indic civilizational thought. The organization enables public intellectuals to discover their potential, transform them as thought leaders, and nurture them to become social entrepreneurs. Indic Academy also incubates, invests, and assists social enterprises delivering a product, service, or an experience that is based on Indic thought. These aims are achieved through scholarships and grants, courses and programs, networks and platforms, and affiliates. Indic Academy provides scholarships to students and seeks to establish relationships with existing universities and institutions. Currently, Indic Academy has an MOU with the Kanchi Math Sanchi University and Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapit. The organization provides fellowship, research, and travel grants to scholars and public intellectuals, publishing grants to digital platforms and first-time authors, grants for conducting events and projects, and entrepreneurial entrepreneurial grants for nurturing entrepreneurship, such as Pondi Literature Festival, Bharat Shakti, and the recently organized Indic Keen Festival. We at Indic Academy conduct online and offline courses and programs, including workshops, seminars, conferences, and retreats. As regards networks and platforms, we enable public intellectuals to connect, cooperate, and collaborate with one another by nurturing various networks such as Indica Network, Indic Activists Network, Indic Author Network, and Indic Economic Network. We are currently incubating platforms such as Indic Today, Indic Book Club, Indic Knowledge Systems, Indica Pictures, and Indica Moksha. Under our affiliate program, we act as financial and or thought partners with other social enterprises. Indic Academy is steered by Sri Harikiran Badlamani sir, who is also my mentor. I would now request Major General G.D. Bakshi ji to please deliver his talk.
Thank you, Manoshi Beta, for that very generous introduction. I have the highest regards for this daughter of mine. She is a great crusader for the Indic civilization. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to talk to you about a facet of our history that needs radical change. We must make an endeavor to own our history. You don't write your own history. You will forever be slaves of a colonial dispensation that vanished 73 bloody years ago, and you are still in that slavish mold in which the British left behind. Because, you know, as the joke goes in some of the films, hum अंग्रेजों के जमाने के jailer हैं. You know, everything British at a particular point in time, it was drilled into us, is superior. And everything, the word Deshi stood for inferior, downtrodden, useless. I mean, that is the worst thing about that colonial period of history, was that psychological feeling of inferiority. 73 साल हो गए अंग्रेजों को गए. 73 years after the British have gone, we've not been able to change that induced narrative of inferiority, of the white civilization being so superior, and that everything of value came from outside to this civilization. The Aryans came from outside. Agriculture came from outside because we were too dumb, too daft to even learn how to, you know, grow, plant, etc. All that knowledge came to us from the Middle East. You know, it was amazing that you accepted this colonial narrative. But what is a miracle is that 73 years after the British have gone, what is your compulsion to hold on to that narrative? You have a set of rearguard warriors, you know, our leftist liberal historians, our Romilla Thapars, Irfan Habibs of the world, who tell you, how can you brown people change one word of what the British wrote? What Max Muller said was the law. How can you deviate? I think if we are just normal intellectuals, we would like to go not by what Max Muller said or did not say. We would like to go by the empirical evidence. And a whole lot of fields of inquiry have opened up long after Sir Max Muller died, you see, which now give us a clear indication. I'm afraid he was not right. However much we may like to honor him, but he is not right. You see, in this last month, August, we held a multidisciplinary seminar at the University of Delhi. We had the people, scholars from the following disciplines who were there. First and foremost, from the discipline of satellite imagery. Ladies and gentlemen, are you aware that in 1970, the Americans had lofted a satellite called Landsat satellite. That's for the first time sent back satellite imagery which showed the course of a dried out river from the Himalayas to the Arabian Sea. So there is no longer need for conjecture, I'm not saying it that because it is written in the Vedas, so you have to believe. As the Buddha said, monks, do not believe because I'm telling you to say so. Or because I'm saying so, or because it is written in the scriptures. The empirical evidence from a satellites do not lie. That river is there, sir. And if you had any doubts that there was some kind of a cloud cover or whatever, the ISRO has lofted satellite after satellite after satellite. IRS D, IRS C, and a whole host of satellites. I have personally seen that entire satellite imagery of a river that was, hold your breath, 4,600 kilometers long from the Himalayas to the sea, right? It was 6 to 8 kilometer average width. At Patiala, where the Yamuna and the Satluj joined this river, its width was 20 kilometers. It was a river mightier than the Brahmaputra. No wonder in the Vedas, this river, they are euphoric in the praise of this river because they said this river is the cradle of the Indian civilization. This river is the cradle of the Indian civilization and not, repeat not, the Indus. I will tell you how, right? So, the Rig Veda says, there is a shlok, Naditama, Devitama, Anutama. She is the greatest of all the Devis, Devittama. She is the greatest of all the mothers, Anuttama. She is the greatest of all the rivers, Nadittama. Raging mother of floods. These are the descriptions of the river. She uproots the mountain tops like an elephant uproots a lotus flower from the marsh or the lake. The ease with which the elephant uproots the, lotus, she uproots the mountain tops. Mother, do not be angry with us. Save our homes. What are they talking of? They're not talking of a dried out stream. They're talking of a river, mighty torrential river in full flow. In full flow. Now, to the contrary is the colonial narrative. The colonial narrative questions. There was no river like the Sarasvati. Or maybe it was the Hexra Ravati which is in Afghanistan. I mean, that stream doesn't reach the sea. Whereas the Vedas clearly tell you from the mountains to the sea. That stream just dies out somewhere. It's a small, piddly little river. And to call it the Sarasvati, but nahi, Sarasvati nahi thi. Because you see, the whole paradigm changes if you accept the existence of the Sarasvati. So the first thing that the colonial narrative challenges is, there was no Sarasvati. There was no Sarasvati. So are the satellites lying? Are the satellites, there's some technical problem? Not with one American satellite, but with about 100 Indian satellites which have since been lofted. Okay, forget the satellites. Now, the second discipline which was there was geologists. Geologists tell us that this river was in full flow 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Geologists tell us this, right? And then what happened? 4,600 years from today, 4,600 years from today, there was a massive tectonic plate shift in North India, right? And I have the satellite figures and I'll try and show you those photographs. A tear emerged in the Shivaliks, tear fault. And the Yamuna, which was flowing eastwards and joining the Saraswati, it was then called the Drishadvati, you see. And the Kurukshetra battlefield, if you read the opening lines of the Mahabharata, is between the Saraswati and the Drishadvati. Kurukshetra. You see, every time an Indian dies, my ashes are supposed to be dispersed in Haridwar, in the Ganga. But my Pinddan will be done at Kurukshetra. Which is the river in Kurukshetra? Saraswati. Do you see how in the oral memory, the memory of the Saraswati has been preserved for thousands upon thousands of years? Now the leftists will tell us oral memory. I mean, what credence can you give to it? Certainly, sir. But you can give credence to the satellite imagery. You can give credence to the geologists. So when this first earthquake took place, the Yamuna veered off and joined the Ganga. 50% of the ice melt waters was gone. 2,600 years, the second earthquake takes place, and this time the Satluj veers off and joins the Indus, right? 100% of the ice melt water is gone, it becomes a monsoonal stream. Around the time of the Mahabharata, if you read the Mahabharata, in the Shanti Parva, there is a mention that when the war was about to start, Balram got very angry with his younger brother, with Krishna. He says, you have let this war happen. And she will talk more about the curse of Gandhari. You have let this war happen. I am not taking any part. And he started a pilgrimage along the banks of the Sarasvati. And the Sarasvati was then dying. At Vinashana, Jaisalmer, I was there last year. This river has gone underground. We have mapped the underground course of the whole Saraswati. The whole water department now are trying to drill a series of wells. And there is lakhs of liters of sweet water along the Saraswati course, which can make that desert as green as the Israelis have made their desert, if not greener. Okay? That place is called Vinashana. Vinashana is mentioned in the Mahabharata. The river had gone underground at the time of the Mahabharata. When he came further north, the river was dry. For 12 years, there had been a massive drought, no rains. It was a civilizational catastrophe, right? It was a civilizational catastrophe. There had been no rains at all. And do you know, geologists tell you, Meghalayan age, around 2000 BC, there was a massive global drought. The monsoons failed, the Mesopotamian civilization died out, the Egyptian civilization suffered, and of course the so-called Indus Valley civilization also perished in this period. The geologists are telling you this, sir. So 2000 BC, this river had vanished and gone. South of Jaisalmer, it was reduced to a series, it had gone underground. North of Jaisalmer, series of lakes and pools. And some isolated streams which come up in the monsoon. But Max Muller tells us that in 1500 BC, the Aryans crossed the Himalayas. They crossed the Himalayas with their wooden chariots and their horses, and they had weapons of iron. And the poor Dravidians who were there, as per him, the inhabitants of the Indus Valley civilization had bronze weapons. They had no chariots, poor fellows, you see, and they were slaughtered. Indra, the destroyer of 100 fort cities. Indra is accused of genocide. He destroyed 100 fort cities. Firstly, in the entire Indus Valley civilization, there are only 10 cities. So you can't destroy 100 when there are only 10, you know. And second thing, I have served my life in the Himalayas. I would like to see a chariot being brought across the Himalayas, or even the Bolan Pass, or the Khyber Pass. The rickety bloody chariots, our tanks can't cross that. Our tanks shed their bloody tracks. You are telling me that those chariots came from Central Asia, they came in the chariot, they crossed the Pamirs, they crossed the Hindu Kush, they crossed the Himalayas. Because some of them are supposed to have come via the Kashmir route, please. They took those chariots did not get broken into bits, and what would have happened to the spine of the chap standing in their chariot, I don't know. But the chariots came across, sir. They came across. My first basic question to you is, geologists tell you that by 1500 BC, this river had vanished. So, firstly, please tell me, why would, let's say tomorrow the Yamuna dries up. What do you think will happen? With not a drop of bloody water to drink, you will be migrating. You would be emigrating. If the Brahmaputra dries up, what do you think will happen to the people? You will be going out, sir. Water is the most basic necessity. You are telling me that when the Saraswati was dying out, when that whole area was suffering an ecological catastrophe, when desertification happened, the whole of Rajasthan was green. I hope you know that in the Indus Valley seals, there are rhinoceros, rhinos. It was as lush as the Brahmaputra Valley. Rajasthan. I'm talking of Rajasthan. That is what it was. Now that whole river dries out, becomes a desert. That is the time the Aryans chose. एक बूंद पानी का नहीं है साहब, हम तो जाएंगे वहां. अरे साहब क्यों जाएंगे? They were not crazy. People don't migrate into areas of an eco catastrophe. They emigrate from there outwards. So whether it was Aryan invasion theory, subsequently, modified to Aryan migration theory, Indo-Aryan migration theory. You see, if there was a genocide, sir, please show us the corpses. As a military man, I'd ask you, मुझे लाशें दिखाइए. आप कह रहे हैं मार डाले. You slaughtered them. So they found the dead bodies. Mortimer Wheeler found the dead bodies. He found 32 at one place and 11 at another. Firstly, it sounds like a very weak massacre to me as a military man. Second thing, the joke is that those bodies were not discovered at the same level. They are discovered at various levels. That means they have died at not together, but at different times. Okay. Now the third fact. He said, okay, Saab, you found the corpses. Okay, we will take it. Ki wo, chalo. They were very charitable. They only killed about 30 plus 11, 40 something. Where are the spear marks? Where are the sword cuts? Where are the broken bones? Where are the sawed off heads or chopped off heads? Then pata chala they have died by drowning. Look at this hoax. You are trying to, make a jackass out of us. So when the whole Aryan invasion theory failed, it was very smartly changed to Indo-Aryan migration theory. No, sir, they didn't invade. They came in series of invasions. To where? To where there was no water. To where the local peoples were running this way and they were running that way. Because if, sir, a river this size dries up, people on the east bank would migrate to the Indo-Gangetic plain, which was then densely forested. And the whole Mahabharata, etc., is about burning forest down and reclaiming this land. And the people on the west bank, sir, would migrate towards the upper side via Afghanistan. They could go to Central Asia. They could go to the Middle East, where we have evidence of that tablet which says there was a peace treaty between the Mitanni and the other tribe, and they said with Indra, Mitra, Varna as witness, we are signing this peace treaty. So we were told, dekha, wo wahan se aaya tha. No, sir. It is more logical that he went when there was total water scarcity of a catastrophic order. That they went out looking for water, sir. That is more logical because you can't defy logic. Max Muller said so. But that's it. He said so and that's what it is. So it's not. So we held this seminar. We called the geologists. We called the satellite imagery guys. We called the archaeologists. We called the population genetic mapping scientists. We called those who were experts in scriptures and those who were experts in linguistics. That is the Indo-European language, which was the Proto-Indo-European language, where was the Indo-European homeland. So everybody put it around Central Asia, Turkey, Anatolia, everywhere else but here. Why? The inferior civilization. How can the Brits be our descendants? But then you are. You can't deny your ancestry because a hell of a lot has come out now. A hell of a lot has come out now. And the first thing that has come out is that the genes north and south of the Vindhyas are the same. Don't give us that Aryan-Dravidian divide crap. The genes are the same, sir. Genetically, you are the same. Well, if I or somebody who is very fair from J&K goes and stays a couple of decades down south, the skin will have to alter color to keep out the strong sunlight. And if you come north, then you need a lighter pigment. It's as simple. Genetically, we are the same. The Aryan-Dravidian divide is a myth. It was the creation of a British bishop based in Chennai. And it has now become dogma. It has now become dogma. So we had all these multidisciplinary experts sitting together, and the archaeologists gave us some very revealing insights. Right? They gave us some very revealing insight. Can you just get to the imagery. Just show. No, not to worry. Better. Uh, uh, Go next. Go next. Go next. There are some of the satellite images that you can see. You see this, that light blue river is the Sarasvati tract. Okay, go next. Go next. Again, you can see satellite imagery. This is the tear fault in the Shivaliks. You see that? From which Yamuna now turns eastwards. And you have the previous things of the Yamuna tract. Next, please. These are the Y1, Y2, Y3 paleo channels of the Yamuna, which are clearly visible from satellites where she changed course. We are giving you a picture is worth 1,000 words. Next, please. All right. The only point is that I have to figure what I see. This is the white tree channel Yamuna, which was the right. This is the white radio channel, which was initially joining the Sarasvati. And there is the white one radio channel. You see that? So this is how Yamuna was used to use it of the Sarasvati. Then because of that airport, that is the airport. It shifts and turns under 4,700 years ago. Massive tectonic plate activity, which is geologists have been right? Just go back one other. That's the airport. Satellite protocol. That is the existing line. That is the existing line. It needs to be shown for the next. Just go back one more. Go back one more. No. This is the satellite protocol. Next, please. Can you hear me? We have a parade ground voice of a soldier. Okay. Ghaggar alignment, the Ghaggar, I'll take that on in questions if you don't mind. I will, I certainly will, beta. I certainly will. Thank you. This is where it has gone underground, Jaisalmer. You see, the whole river has gone underground. And if you ever go to the Sangam, and if the boatman takes you, he will tell you oral history, sir, ये गंगा है. ये देखिए सर, ये है यमुना जी हैं. और सरस्वती अदृश्य हो गई. So people thought, just a myth hai, kahani hai. We have actually seen the place where it has gone underground. There are 3 separate channels at 3 different depths. And when you put the, tube wells, the water, sweet water gushes out. You go 5 kilometers this side and 5 kilometers that, it is brackish, salty water, which is not fit for human consumption. But along the Sarasvati tract, it is there. Next, please. Next, please. 60% of the sites of the so-called Indus Valley civilization. Okay, this is a very interesting slide. See the Indus. How many of these purple dots can you see? Very few. This data is the Sarasvati. See the depth concentration. That's the Ghaggar that we were talking about, which is the Sarasvati alignment. Precisely, Ghaggar is the Sarasvati alignment. And you see the depth concentration around Kurukshetra. That is the core civilization area of the Indic civilization, which was evidenced by satellite. The Indus Valley sites are not so much on the Indus Valley. 60 to 80% of the urban sites are on the Sarasvati. There are sites. What we are telling you is that 60 to 80% of the sites are on the Sarasvati. 60 to 80% especially the urban sites are not on the Indus, they are on the Sarasvati. So the Greeks got it wrong. So by the time they came here, the Sarasvati had died out. They saw only the Indus, which is Indus, Ithaca, India. 7th century later, the Arabs came and they said Hindu, you could pronounce the S, Hindu, and Hindustan, right? That is the problem from where we go basically wrong. In the entire cradle river of the Indian civilization, we go starkly wrong. Next, please. This again is an aerial photograph. You just see that. Here the Indus is very clear, but all the sites of the so-called Indus Valley civilization are aligned along the Sarasvati track which ran parallel to it. Next please. Next. We haven't been able to decipher the Indus Valley script. But what we have discovered there, ladies and gentlemen, is a series of figurines of terracotta, right? And they have a plastic visual language of sorts. You know, what is that artist trying to do when he captures reality? You know, he's capturing the reality that he sees around him. Now, these are terracotta dolls, almost 5,000 years plus old. And if you see this carefully. I think this is slightly, God faded. You see the figures? Actually, there is a mark of the printing. The printing is gone, that color is gone. See this carefully, the printing and before we can see the mark. The median part of the hair was filled with the gold. You can see the windy hair, you can see the windy hair. It is 5,000 years old and more. 5,000 years old and more. The level of cultural continuity. And you are saying this is not Aryan, this is so and so, this is whatever it is Indian. Next please. You see the bangles. And those are the exact bangles that the women in Rajasthan and Gujarat wear till today. Till today. Next please. These are the most clinching evidence. These are the terracotta figurines in the postures of yoga. Beyond 5,000 years, these have been found, sir, in the Indus Valley so-called civilization. That shows you, what is the basic characteristic of the Indian civilization, if you ask me. I would say it is yoga and it is dhi. What is dhi? Dhiyo nam prachodayat. Bhargo devasya dhimahi. We meditate upon that sun. Not this sun above, but the sun here, the Atman. We meditate upon the Atman. Dhimahi. The distinguishing characteristics of the Indic civilization are yoga, they are dhyan, they are dhi. And you will see both of them here. You can see the the various yogic postures which are there. The Anjali Mudra is something that I will talk upon quite a lot. The Vajrasana is there on the bottom, and these have been discovered from Mohenjo-daro and from Harappa. Next please. These are the sketches of those. You see that Vajrasana number 3. And there is also some affinity with the Surya Namaskar postures. Actually, if those of you who do Surya Namaskar. Next please. Now we were looking for meditation. So we have this old priest king. He's got his eyes half closed. What do you think he's doing? Yes. Yes, next to each other. So the continuity continues. But we were told by the leftist historians, no, he's dozing. He's sleeping. No, he can't be meditating. Because, Indians can't do anything good. Okay, next. Well, is this person not meditating? This is the proto-Shiva, Pashu, Pati, Nath. How Indian can you get? Pashu, Pati, Nath, yaar, wo meditate kar raha. How Indian can you get? You can still deny he is the Adi Yogi. He is the Adi Yogi. Next. You had any doubts? That is the Shiva Linga. Please go to the National Museum. Enter the Indus Valley Gallery. The first thing that you will see is a huge Shiva Linga. Okay. So, if these are the people who worship the Shiva Linga. Very interesting seal on the right. You know what that plant, those leaves are? People. Don't you worship the people? Don't you still put a sacred thread around the people? It was the dispute is whether the people was the Ashwat. Jaise ki aapko, Ashwat. It is, a number of people call it the Ashwat tree. All this is from there. Next please. The bullock carts. If you take a measurement The proportions of this bullock cart are exactly the proportions of the bullock carts that still move around in rural India. Still move around in rural India. Next, please. The boats. You know, that on the left is the existing boat as it is still made locally in Gujarat, on the Gujarat coast. That is an existing boat made by the local fishermen. See the seals and see how similar that boat is. Please see the seal on top, see the seal in the middle. And that very graphic kind of a seal, but it is the same boat, sir. It is the same boat. That is what I am talking about. It gives you goosebumps. When you look at these terracotta seals, when you read that visual narrative, they are telling you that this is a civilization with an amazing degree of cultural continuity. Unbroken cultural continuity till this date. The design of the houses, a courtyard in the center with the tulsi plant in the center and rooms all around. My God, there is no dearth. Next, please. ये क्या है बताइए? स्कूल में फट्टी लेके गांव में जाते हैं बच्चे. We've all gone to convent schools, so we have not carried this फट्टा. ये वो फट्टी पे लिखते थे, फिर उस पे वो लगा देते थे लेप. You see, you remember? And this has been found in the Indus Valley civilization, if you please. Next. ये देखिए pottery. I would still love to own this pottery, and the basic design is exactly what you have, except it is now in steel, it is now in aluminium, or it is now in plastic. Worst of all, you know, they're all the designs are what you have now. Next, please. This is a very interesting slide. The 9th sukta of the Rig Veda is the Soma Sukta, the one devoted to Soma. What was Soma? बोले साहब, it was a psychotropic plant. इसका जूस पी के इंद्रा द वॉरियर, he used to lose all fear. और वो बड़े बड़े महारथियों से with Ahi the dragon, with the Vritras, he used to fight Vritrahan. तलवार लेके काट कूट डालता था, अपने वज्र से मार डालता था, because उसका सारा डर चला जाता था. You know, and this was the same thing which the Vedic rishis took to get the inspiration of Soma. To get the inspiration, creative inspiration, in which they wrote the world's greatest poetry. And they used to get spiritual highs. Anand, तीव्र आनंद आता था. अब ये देखिए, these are the dolls जो पाई गई हैं last phase of the Indus Valley civilization. Gordon Wasson said that Soma was a red mushroom called the fly agaric. Those of you who have been to the mountains, even those who have been to Ooty, if you go around Ooty under the pine trees, you see these bright red mushrooms with white dots. You can look at what the woman has got around her head. You see the resemblance? Because Soma is a number of Buddhist sculptures. You see the Soma around the Buddha's head. You see एक जैसे कृष्णा होल्ड करी है छतरी. हाथ से देखो तो छतरी is a mushroom. They are saying that when they went to the forest, they ingested this psychotropic plant, and it is one of the key features of the Vedic civilization. But we are told Dravidians who were killed by the Aryans. This is an Aryan thing. It's been found here. It's also, by the way, been found in South America. Maya. Similar dolls. I can show you those photographs, but they are amazing. Next, please. This is what this mushroom looks like. This is the one that I took. You see? One of the most beautiful. This is the aerial view of Mohenjo-daro from above. You know, it looks like a chess board. And actually, chess has been found in that place. Chess pieces. Chaupad, जो game होती थी इसकी, is that old. Next, please. This is the drainage system that was available in the Indus Valley civilization. One bloody rain, and you know, Mumbai is an island. It is a canal. The roads turn into canals. But our ancestors were far smarter in their underground drainage systems, drainage for the refuse, drainage for storage of water, water storage tanks underground. All this is there. Next, please. We were told the Indus Valley never had any chariots. Chariot तो थी ही नहीं साहब, वो तो आर्यंस लेके आए, तो फिर ये क्या है? एंड यू स्टिल हैड, नहीं नहीं साहब इसमें तो बैल लगे, हाँ इसमें बैल लगे, ये वो चैरियट नहीं जिसकी हम, वॉर चैरियट नहीं है. ओके, सी नेक्स्ट. सर दिस इज अ चैरियट ऑफ द इंडस एरा फाउंड इन बागपट. जो 5 गांव थे ना महाभारत के टाइम में, बागप्रस्थ, इंद्रप्रस्थ, पानीप्रस्थ, ये बागपट है वो वाला, और वहां पे दिस चैरियट के रिमेन्स हैव बीन फाउंड. द पिटी इज अनफॉर्चुनेटली इन द ट्रॉपिकल इंडियन क्लाइमेट you can't preserve the wood for so long, you can't preserve the corpses for so long to get proper DNA, right? Here is that bloody chariot, and you got that full design of that chariot. This is the same chariot that you had in Mesopotamia and the others. And don't give us that bullshit that we could design a chariot, we could design a cart, लेकिन chariot नहीं डिजाइन कर सकते, वो तो आर्यंस लेके आए, बाहर से लेके आए. I think it's about time we grow up. It's about time we grow up and look at the evidence. Next, please. Radiocarbon dating has demonstrated that at Bhirana, this is the 6th millennium BCE, 8,000 years. More recent studies of the deeper levels in that same civilization, 9,500 years, sir. Now, this is not some RSS ki goshti ne bola ki saab 9,500 hai. I am telling you what the IIT Kharagpur scientists who did radiocarbon dating, then to recheck it they did fluorescence dating, to recheck it thrice they did fluoride dating. They have all different rates of decay, right? You are talking of the Kharagpur study? Yes. But I am also informed that fluoride dating has also been done and luminescence dating has also been done. That has been done. So the results are here for you to see. Look at the way the dates get pushed off. And by the way, Dwarka, they have also touching, what they have excavated from underwater, where it had gone under the sea. The divers have been sent. There is some dispute on those because they are saying 8,000 plus again. Uh, uh, 8,000 years ago. So what I'm saying is, when you go to the deeper levels, you are actually going.
Everyone to please have the questions and comments later on.
Thank you. You see, the deeper levels, which are the pre-Harappan levels, when the Mehragarh kind of an era was there, that is going to beyond 9,500 years. And that is empirical facts. Right? Next, please. These are again 9,500 years old sites. Pottery shards discovered here. Next, please. So the entire, 1,500 thesis of Max Muller goes out of the window, sir. Because 1500 BC, the Sarasvati was dead. How then was the Rig Veda? Rig Veda, he said, is composed around 1200 BC. 1200 BC, that's it. You see, and he said 200 years. It's a very arbitrary way of calculating, because at that time the Bible, when the world started, was supposed to be 6,000 years. So how can something be older, that old? So I'm afraid we are a little more skeptical about that kind of a logic. And we have so many studies which totally put that chronology absolutely out of gear. Next, please. The one thing that I'd like to leave you with, I could actually continue with this for hours, but then I have my other bitia here sitting, who has to. I would like to listen to her story. The most amazing thing is cultural continuity. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Anjali Mudra, the Namaskar Mudra, that has been found in Mohenjo-daro. That is a dancer who dances. There are so many dancers in this very elite gathering today, and they all know this mudra. And by the way, almost the whole of Asia uses this greeting still. Whether it is Nepal, it is Bhutan, it is Myanmar, it is Sri Lanka, whether it is you go to Tibet, whether you go to Southeast Asia, to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, everywhere to Bali, you will find this greeting. and it comes to us from the so-called Sarasvati civilization, unbroken continuity. And if somebody said, how would you define the grand Indian narrative? How would you define the grand Indian narrative? Every civilization has a narrative of itself. Our American friends say uniqueness, American uniqueness. Ours is a amazing cultural continuity. कुछ है हम में, कुछ है हम में कि मिट सकती नहीं कभी हस्ती हमारी, सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे जमा हमारा, सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा. थैंक यू फॉर अ वेरी पेशेंट हियरिंग.
Thanks, sir, for such an enlightening talk. Uh, we would now launch the book of Aditi Banerjee. I would like to request Major General J.D. Bakshi and Shilpi Tiwari ji to please help in launching the book. I would now request Aditi Banerjee to please come and deliver her talk on the book, The Curse of Gandhari.
Well, that is certainly a very difficult talk to follow, but I shall do my best. So, The Curse of Gandhari is actually a novel I wrote based on the personality of Gandhari in the Mahabharata. So, what I thought I would do is start by retelling what the Mahabharata, the critical edition of the Mahabharata, actually tells us about Gandhari. And she's actually quite an enigmatic, mysterious figure in the Mahabharata. There is not as much written about her as, say, Draupadi or Kunti. What the Mahabharata tells us is that Gandhari was a princess from the kingdom of Gandhara, which can be found in modern northwest Pakistan. She was the princess, she was the daughter to the king Subala. She had 100 brothers. Among them was Shakuni, who of course becomes a very important person in the story of the Mahabharata. And it is said that she had obtained a boon from Shiva himself that she would bear 100 sons. And Bhishma is aware of this boon, and he actually requests the hand of Gandhari to be married to Dhritarashtra, the blind prince. And it is also said that when Gandhari learns that she's to be married to Dhritarashtra, she blindfolds herself. And so she will never be able to see what her husband cannot see. And the other thing that the Mahabharata tells us is that from that moment, she never thought of another man beside her husband. Besides that, it doesn't tell her what was going through her head at the time that she blindfolded herself. Then it is said she went to Hastinapur. Shakuni and others accompanied her. They left her there, and then Shakuni and the others went back. There isn't a whole lot said between then and the next famous incident that happens in Gandhari's life, which is that now there are the two, there's Kunti and there's Gandhari, Kunti the wife of Pandu and Gandhari the wife of Dhritarashtra. And Gandhari is actually the first between the two of them to conceive. So she's the first to become pregnant. But her pregnancy lasts for over 2 years. And one day she learns that Kunti has actually given birth before her. So Yudhishthir is born before her Gandhari's first son is born. And what the Mahabharata says is that when Gandhari learns this, she is so overcome by feeling that she strikes her belly very hard, repeatedly. And she strikes her belly so hard that this mass of flesh comes out of her. It's this mass of flesh that then Veda Vyasa comes and divides into 101 parts for 100 sons and one daughter. And it takes about another year or so for those to grow into her babies. The other thing that we are told in the Mahabharata is that in the meantime, Dhritarashtra has fathered another son through a maid, Yuyutsu, who's born after Dhritarashtra, but is born around the same time. And then the other famous incident or major incident that happens is when Krishna comes to Hastinapur. The war is about to start. Of course, during the disrobing of Draupadi, the Mahabharata doesn't say much about Gandhari's reactions. I mean, the women were not really in the assembly hall at that time. So the next prominent part where Gandhari comes is when Krishna comes to Hastinapur in one last attempt at diplomacy to stop the war from happening. And no one is able to get through to Duryodhan. So Gandhari is actually called to court to speak to her son and to try to stop him from going to war. So she gives a very long speech at that time, which is very eloquent and it's very moving. And she tells Duryodhan that victory will go where dharma is, that this war that he wants to fight, he cannot possibly win, and that he should conquer his inner self and not worry about the kingdoms, that no lasting peace will come through fame or rich or conquering kingdoms. But he does not listen, and of course the war begins. The other famous story that we remember Gandhari for is that she calls Duryodhan to appear before her naked, so that for one moment she can remove her blindfold and look upon him and make him immortal with her gaze. That's not in the critical edition of the Mahabharata, but it's a very important part of the tradition that we have. And what is said is, so we know that she had so much power that with her gaze she could make him immortal. And we also know that it doesn't work because when Duryodhan actually comes before her, he has a piece of cloth tied around his waist, because Shri Krishna had seen him and said, "You cannot appear before your mother like this." And when Gandhari sees this, she doesn't say, "Take off that cloth and let me protect all of you." She knows that the cause is lost and that Duryodhan will be lost as well. So her tapobala goes in that moment. Then once the war is over and her sons have all been defeated and killed, Yudhishthir comes before her. And again, she is so overcome that she sees just through the corner of her eye beneath her blindfold just the little edge of his feet, and his toenails immediately blacken, and he jumps back in fear. So that's the strength and depth of her feeling at that moment. And we are also told that she has this divine vision where she can see everything that on the battlefield. She sees all of the corpses. And the Mahabharata goes on at some length about how devastating this vision is. Corpses are mutilated and broken in half so that you cannot match the head with the body that it came from. And before she actually curses Krishna, she spends long passages just describing all those who have been lost, soldiers from both sides who've been lost, the women who've been widowed, the mothers who've lost their sons. She goes on and on recounting them. And she basically says, "We are helpless, but you, Krishna, for whom nothing is impossible, you could have prevented the war from happening." And she lays the responsibility of the war on him. And she says in a very curious curse that in 36 years, just as these families have all been destroyed, your clan will also be destroyed, will destroy themselves. And when Krishna hears this curse, he accepts it with half a smile. And then in the next breath, he says, "I accept that, but you yourself should realize, don't forget what you said when you told Duryodhan that 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 victory would go where dharma is, and what was your part in all of this? Don't turn a blind eye to the faults of your own sons. So he is quite stern with her in that moment. Beyond that, we do not know much about what happens to Gandhari, other than 12 years after the war has ended, Dhritarashtra decides to retire to the forest. He cannot deal with the taunts of Bhim anymore, so he wants to retire to the forest. Gandhari accompanies him, as does Kunti, to look after them, and Sanjaya also goes with them. And we are told that after a few years, they die in a forest fire, and it's a little bit it's left a bit enigmatic. So the question I'm most often asked is, why write about Gandhari? She's clearly not a conventional heroine in the sense that Kunti or Draupadi is. There's a lot in her that is ambiguous. There's a lot about her that we do not know. But I think the very fact that she's so complex and nuanced is what made her very fascinating for me. So a few aspects of that. To begin with, there's the blindfolding itself. And most often when Gandhari is discussed, it's always just as a symbol of her blindfold. So there are a few different interpretations. One is that it was the act of a devoted, loyal wife, Pativrata, and it's just left at that she was a very ideal wife. The other more modern interpretation is that, well, she couldn't control what her circumstances would be. She couldn't control who she would marry. And this was some kind of an act of defiance or rebellion. Or that the other one is that maybe she was so unhappy she just didn't want to see, so she metaphorically blinded herself to what was happening in her life and what was happening around her. So I think it's difficult to find a very simplistic answer to this. I don't agree that it was just some act of rebellion and spite, because it's very clear through the Mahabharata that the source of her power is her piety and devotion, including to her husband, and that she was someone who obtained boons from Shiva, from Vedavyasa himself, and whose curse Sri Krishna accepted. So there must have been some virtue and nobility within her, otherwise that would not have been possible. At the same time, I think it's easy to imagine that she would not have been very happy in her circumstances to be married to someone like Dhritarashtra, who would not inherit the throne, and who's not a particularly strong or admirable character. And I think that actually makes her character stronger, that even when her husband may not have been ideal, she was still capable of so much devotion and loyalty towards him. And I think there's another question that the Mahabharata raises about this vow, or this blindfolding of herself, which is, would it have been better if she had not blindfolded herself, if she had been the eyes and ears for her husband and been in control of her full senses as queen and as the mother to the princess? And this, I think, the Mahabharata never answers, but it raises this question. And I think there's an interesting parallel here between her and Bhishma. Because Bhishma is the other one who takes a very terrible vow. He takes this vow of celibacy, and this vow itself is so powerful that he can choose the moment of his death. He is revered and respected for this vow. His name, Bhishma, comes from taking this terrible vow. But the Mahabharata also plays with this because it asks, was it right for him to make this vow? He was the prince. He did this to please his father, Shantanu, who wanted to marry Satyavati. But would it have been more appropriate for him not to take that vow because his dharma as the prince of the kingdom, to ensure the succession of the line, should have come first? And there's actually a conversation, I believe, between Krishna and Arjuna, which deals with this. So I think it's an interesting parallel between both Bhishma and Gandhari in terms of these vows that they've taken, that they're revered for, but at what price? And I don't think, again, that there's a simple answer to this. I think the lesson may be that anytime you take a vow or make a sacrifice like this, you should think through all of the consequences and your responsibilities, not just for yourself, but towards the kingdom and for your family. So I think that's one interesting thing. Another is this relationship between Gandhari and Kunti. So again, in ways, they're rivals for obvious reasons throughout the story. And then there's some interesting contrast between them. So Kunti, of course, has to abandon her firstborn son, Karna, and both Karna and Kunti suffer for this for the rest of their lives. On the other hand, Gandhari, when Duryodhan is born, Vidur and the other brahmanas in the court actually advised Dhritarashtra to forsake him. That he will bring so much wickedness to the kingdom that it is better to abandon him. But they're unable to do so, and throughout the Mahabharata, the tragedy of Gandhari is she's someone who in her own right was noble and virtuous, yet because she was so attached to her family, she's not able to let them go. So that's an interesting difference between Kunti and Gandhari. And then I think in some ways, Kunti, who also had a difficult job in raising the Pandavas, including two sons who were not her own biological sons, but she kept them united against all odds, including when they were all attracted to Draupadi. She made sure that Draupadi never became a source of divide among them, that all of them were married to her. She kept them on the side of Dharma, and she protected their interests. She was successful in a way that Gandhari was not, because Gandhari clearly recognized what Dharma was. She knew the futility of what Duryodhan wanted to do, but she was unable to stop them along the way. So I think there again that rivalry comes through in that contrast. And then finally, in their last encounters with Krishna, so Gandhari's last encounter with Krishna is to curse him, which again she realizes it's also kind of tragic because it's futile. She utters this curse, she wastes all her tapabala, but this was always part of Krishna's plan, that the Vrishnis would also go away like this. He had come to lighten the burden of the earth, which meant the great heroes of the age had to depart. So obviously this curse was also in a way part of Krishna's plan. Otherwise, why would she say in 36 years specifically this will happen? So there again, she's exercising her power, but nothing really comes of it. On the other hand, when Krishna finally leaves Hastinapur, Kunti actually asks a boon of him, which is to visit sorrow upon sorrow on her again and again, because it's only through sorrow that she can remember Krishna. And it's a very beautiful prayer. So again, you see this contrast in their relationships with Krishna and what they ask or what they curse him with in the end. But I think also, when I think of the two of them as I explore in the novel, I think there's a bond there too, because I think very few other people could have understood what each of them went through. So I think of them as kind of having the sisterhood. Again, Kunti goes with Gandhari and Dhritarashtra to the forest to look after them. So there is kind of this bond there, I think, which again I explore. And then the last part of it is, so what do we make of Gandhari? And I think in a lot of the interpretations I've read, it's always a judgment. Either she was just a devoted, loyal wife who just could not rise above her circumstances, who was kind of a victim, or she is held accountable that she was not a good mother, perhaps because she blindfolded herself, or that she was too attached and could not do what Kunti did, so she's blamed as being this bad mother or bad queen. Or she's kind of shown as being like this symbol of this rebellion and defiance against the society in which she was in. And for me, when I was writing this book, for me it was kind of a voyage of discovery myself, because in the beginning those were kind of the questions I was wrestling with. And then what I thought is it's actually very unfair to judge or evaluate her or reduce her to this kind of assessment. But I think it's much more complicated than that. And I actually remember one afternoon I was sitting with my Diksha Guru, and I was telling him, this is the story I want to write, and this is how I'm thinking about Gandhari. And he said just one line, but that line really stayed with me. He said, Gandhari is very difficult to write about. What we can say about her is that even Sri Krishna respected her so much. And really that's what stayed with me, is this idea, if someone like Sri Krishna had this respect for Gandhari, then I think we also must have this respect for her without kind of this black and white type of judgment. So that was kind of the theme that drove the rest of my book. And I thought I would like to make this as interactive as possible and open it up to Q&A. So I just thought I'd read a short passage from the book, and I'll end with that. So this passage takes place once Gandhari knows that she is pregnant, and so that's where this begins. One day, Gandhari complained to Ayla, her maid, "It feels like I have 100 babies inside of me, all waiting to be born. That would really be a fine mess if I am to bear all 100 sons at once." Ayla clucked sympathetically. It was Gandhari's intent to imbue her baby with education even while he was in the womb. She wanted to recite all of the hymns to the devas that she had learned, to surround him with auspicious vibrations, to give him the company of the devas. She wanted to teach him all that Subala had taught her, reciting the names of all the eminent dynasties and lineages of the ruling families of Bharat. She wanted to tell him about the values by which to live, how to care for and win the favor of the people, the duties of a king. But in this too she was thwarted by Dhritarashtra. He would lie next to her in bed for hours, whispering bitterly into her belly how he had been deprived of the throne by fate, how all of his hopes were vested in this baby boy who would finally win for him the throne he was denied. Gandhari sometimes tried to put her hands on her belly to protect the baby from these venomous outpourings, as if she could cover his ears. Months and months passed. It had been a year now, over a year, and still no babies emerged from her womb. Gandhari grew weaker and weaker. She was on the verge of unconsciousness all the time, but lacked the respite of sleep. She was tormented by nightmares of hellish worlds full of fire and demons. In her visions, all she saw was a blazing fire spread across the entire horizon, scorching her skin as she walked through it, looking for her babies. Every time she opened her mouth to call out to them, she swallowed fire, and her organs withered and died. She became a walking skeleton, but still she went after her babies. They began to cry out to her like hatchlings. She heard their cries faint through the din of the roaring fire that howled as it ate more and more of the world, consuming and charring everything in sight. She never saw them, only heard their cries, crawling and groping through this world of fire. It was as if she had been left to die. Gandhari stopped counting the days once her pregnancy exceeded a year, and so she did not know when it was that Dhritarashtra came running to her chamber. It had been months since he had visited her, and Gandhari stirred in surprise, trying to wake herself into a lucid state. She tried to comb her hair with her fingers to appear presentable, but she had grown so weak that she was unable to do so. Dhritarashtra was ranting incoherently, trying to push his way in. Her heart began to pound in terror. Had she miscarried without realizing it? Her hands groped towards her belly. No, that pulsing mass was still there, throbbing inside her belly. He pushed in and leaned over Gandhari, snarling, you promised me 100 sons." She began to quake. "That is what Shiva has promised me. That is what Veda Vyasa promised me. Surely it will come true." It hurt her to talk, so parched was her throat. So long had it been since someone had spoken to her, since she had managed to drink a few drops of water. Even though he was yelling at her so bitterly, it was almost a relief to have a human interaction, to feel like someone cared enough to visit. "It is no use now. 1 son or 100. You are too late, woman. You have been in this room for over a year now, over 1 year, and still no baby." "I am trying my best." He sputtered indignantly. "Well, you need not bother anymore. Kunti has given birth to a boy. Pandu has an heir." She tried to lift her head, shock freezing the blood in her veins. "Kunti, Pandu, how? And Pandu is still alive? How is it possible? The curse, it cannot be possible." "How do I know?" But the messenger was a rishi, so no doubt could be cast on the truth of the matter. A hale, healthy son, as fair and noble as Yama, the god of death and righteousness himself. That is what they say. And with that he left. For long minutes Gandhari was shell-shocked. She could not believe it. What had she come to? How low had she fallen? For months and months she had held that massive life within her, protecting it with all her strength and will, gritting her teeth through the worst kinds of pain, defying the concerns of doctors in order to keep that fetus safe. She had taken Bhishma's command to keep safe the future of the Kudu clan within her belly very seriously. She had nursed it with her blood, her marrow, her very flesh. She had taken in faith the words of Shiva and Veda Vyasa that she would be mother to 100 sons. Fool, I have been fooled by the devas, by the rishis, by this family. I have lost to Kunti again. No more of this. A low animal-like primal scream started emitting from her belly, then her lungs, her chest, her dry throat, her mouth finally emerging from her trembling lips. She screamed and began striking her belly, hard, again and again, with force she did not know she had left inside her. She bashed her belly until her bangles shattered and stuck in shards into the skin of her taut stomach, drawing blood. She struck her belly harder and harder, desperate to expel that mass of flesh from her body, that cancerous thing that had devoured and destroyed her. Still she did not desist. Finally, as Isla ran back to her, hearing her screams, there was an immense heaving from within the deepest recesses of her, and that mass of flesh dislodged itself from the lining of her womb, and lunged downwards like an iceberg ripping off from a glacier wall. As Isla cried out in shock and worry, reaching out to try to save her, that thing came out of her in a burst of blood and strange fluids, a heavy mass of dead, dense flesh, as heavy and hard as bone, woven round and round into a tight ball of flesh that smelled rotten and diseased. Gandhari cried out in anguish, feeling simultaneous relief and grief, so overcome and overwrought that she slipped into a deep unconsciousness, into sleep for the first time in many months. Thank you.
Thanks, Aditi, for recreating the story of the Mahabharata here and giving us a new perspective about Gandhari. Both the books, the Sarasvati Civilisation and the Curse of Gandhari, both the books are available outside for sale. You can buy and you can get the books signed by the authors. I would now like to request Shilpi Tiwari to please give an overview about the talks, and this will be followed by a question answer session.
First of all, I'd like to welcome you all and thank you all for coming to this place and giving us an opportunity to have a lively interactive session with you. We'll have nearly an hour long session of Q&A. So please just think about everything so that we also are enriched. The two books the two topics and books which we discussed today, they are very pertinent to the current scenario in which various kinds of narratives are being pushed forward. The latest one being genetics in the name of science. This I would rather call it pseudo genetics, pseudo science, because everything is under war, under wrap. The thing is that in the name of genetics, what they are pushing is absolutely unknown. They have devised a mathematical model where they are we don't know what kind of the same model which they are presenting gets discredited now in the Rakhi Gadi sample, but still they have the temerity to say this, yes, the same model we'll be applying, and then we'll say that step ancestry is being seen in all of us who are present over here, whether they are North Indians, South Indians, scheduled caste, Savan, Dwej, whatever kind of Indians who we are. So, and then there are various unseen forces also, which we can discuss later on. Now, there are people who are not even geneticists; they are cryptographers. There are mathematicians who are um, they have published 2,000 papers within 3 years. Now, this is unseen. All this is mathematical jargon which they are presenting. This has nothing to do with genetics. This has nothing to do with core science where we see a gene and we map the whole of genome. No, it's not like that. They are cherry picking a few gene. Now, on what basis they are presenting this gene as a step gene, we don't know, and they are not telling us also. With a biased attitude, with a biased aim, they are picking a few genes, and then they are saying we'll be exploring this is called capture technique. They are not examining the whole genome. They are just picking up a few genes, and then they are saying this is what we have found, and this is the mathematical model which we are using. The same model gets discredited in Rakhi Gadhi, but they published it with so much fanfare in Nature, and we had to accept it because it is the one of the best journals, and it has got a level of credence to it. So we have to be very alert that whatever is being peddled in the name of science is not science. We have to be very cautious of what they are trying to push forward. Those big names, Harvard and Oxford, they don't carry any weight. We have seen it for the past 70 years in our own Bharat, that in the name of literature, art, science, not science, but history, archaeology, what we were taught, what we were subjected to, in the name of intellectualism and culture, we were bulldozed by all bullshit theories and ideas. The same thing, and these people, they are masters of these munnas of Romila Thapar. Romila Thapar is nothing in front of them. They'll create 10 times more Romila Thapars. And those who are managing the masters of Romila Thapar in Harvard, they are even more great men. So please be aware, this is a very dangerous game which they are playing on us. We have military intelligence people who have gained entry into genetics, and then they are creating papers on genetics. So it is like that bad. uh, Nick Patterson is one. He is a cryptographer. He worked for British intelligence, and then all of a sudden he created Harvard labs, and then David Reich was created by him. Then he created a few more labs on Priya Murjani, and then we have, for every set of people, they pick up one local lad. For example, for Indian studies, initially they had Murjani, now they have Vagish. So this is a game they play on us. The Aryan invasion theory, sir has rightly pointed out, there are so many gaps on it. Initially, they said they came in through Iran, then it got discredited. So they said they jumped over the Pamirs into Bharat. They don't have any archaeology, and it defies logic. Not just Pamir mountains, they came through Altai mountain corridors. So their chariots were jumping on high mountains which are 3,000, 4,000 meters high. They say they didn't come through the straight route through RLC region, but they went in a huge loop through northern steppes and then on to along China-Russian border towards south. So this defies logic. They have no evidence of coming in through Karakum and Kizilkum desert, nothing like that. So they don't have genetic evidence also of incursion of genes of local people. When a population migrates like this over 3,000 years, from 3,300 BC up to 1500 BC, so there's a gap of 1800 BC, they'll be migrating in this whole zone. They should intermarry with local people and pick up new genes on their way. But those new genes they are not presenting. They say that we have those West Eurasian genes with West Siberian hunter gatherer, and then we have seen them in maximally in Brahmins and Bhumihars, and so these are the worst people. They control every religious dogma, and then they impose their language. Now, imposing a language on somebody who are crores in number is impossible unless you subjugate them to a political power, as they did, as Britishers did in various colonies. So there is no evidence of any political power which they gained through muscle, or there is no evidence of any mass genocide, murder, invasion, attack as they see in Europe. So invasion they modified as migration, but then they'll keep on saying the same things, that they impose their religion, they impose their language, they impose their culture. They did a very bad, they created a very patriarchal society wherein only more or less they'll say that Aryan Brahmins, they raped the local ladies and then created a whole lot of ANI, which again raped ASI and then created new groups of tribes and people. So we have Chenchus in the South India who have Eurasian genes. Now they are Dravidians, but why have they Eurasian genes? Because they'll give an answer subtly, very subtle in nature. The reason would be because Aryan Brahmins, they raped the Dravidians, and hence we have the paternal genes of West Eurasians. So that is how the SDRE Dravidians, they have those TFTA Aryans. You know what is TFTA? Tall, fair, tight as this. The West Eurasian gene, SDRE, this is our local lingo. This is how they have taught us. SDRE is short, dark, rice eating fellow, which is a Dravidian. So this is all raw, very raw and racist kind of theory which they keep on imposing on us. And the root of this is even archaeologists, what they have said is, in fact, New York Times uh, has written on this, that even archaeologists feel that genetics on these academic papers, they are trafficking some very old, very discredited ideas. And one of them, one of the root of this is the idea of Gustav Kosina, which probably you might be knowing, a German archaeologist who based all of his treatise on cultural and race superiority of the Germanics. And another point which they have raised is, as excited as these people might be, the new data geneticists have produced some feel that their own concerns and expertise are being sidelined by these genetics. For example, Professor Shinde will get that archaeological thing. He will state something in his cell paper which he rightly said, but these people, and we have records of their internal communication wherein they are saying so bad about the Indian collaborators, they are literally labeling them as saboteurs, as bad people. This is what they are communicating internally within themselves. So the Indian collaborators are saboteurs and low quality people. This is what they are writing. And to preempt, to preempt Professor Shinde and Neeraj Rai work, they they published their own preprint thing. They leaked their preprint thing, and then they said that step ancestry is found, and then all those things. So they tried to sabotage what Shinde and Neeraj Rai were trying to print in Cell. So this is a great game. We have to be aware. We have to study a lot, and we have to retort them. So people like General Bakshi, they have presented such an excellent thing. It is now well known, and we have to accept and label it now as Saraswati Ghati civilization. Of course, everything is along that Saraswati route, and it gets very well connected with Aditi ji's curse of Gandhari, because that curse also occurs on the banks of Saraswati from Kurukshetra to Dwarka. Dwarka has been described in Mahabharata as being situated, that Prabhas, as being situated on where Saraswati ends in the Bay of sorry, that Arabian Sea. Arabian Sea is described as Sindhu Sagar incidentally in our text. So Aditi ji's book highlights a lady who is not very well talked of, very less talked of, but she herself has a very high stature. She loves her kid, but somehow she doesn't give that blessing to Duryodhana and all the Kauravas for a victory in Mahabharata. In her heart, she knows that it would be bad if these people win. But of course, as a mother, she cannot. She plays into the hands of Krishna, because Krishna ji knows that even Vrishnis and Yaduvanshis, they themselves are very nice people. So everything is planned, and ultimately, all the corrupt people, they are cleansed. It involved Akshahinis and Akshahinis of people. So it was a very well presentation by both of the gentlemen, and I would thank you both to come to us and tell us about your books and your researches. I again thank you a lot. Now we'll have a question and answer session, but before that, there is one thing which I would about Aditi ji, because I see that she has got some ring somewhere. So she अभी उनका विवाह होना है कुछ दिनों में. So everyone is welcome. सबको स्वागत है त्रियोगी नारायण जी में. So she loves going to Himalayas, wandering, and then seeing the Chinese spy upon us. So अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा, welcome sir, welcome. So now we'll have a question and answer session, and feel free to ask anything and whatever you like. We have both the good panelists with us.
Right, this is a question that more or less brings both speakers together. It's about Aditi's theme, but it's also about something that I have heard the general say. And of course, if I misquote him, you can immediately rectify that. The curse pronounced towards Krishna may have a certain military logic behind it. As you explained 3 years ago at the conference by the Draupadi Foundation on the Mahabharata history. Namely, that he was of the Vrishni clan within the Yadava tribe. And so even though the Vrishni clan did not end well, the Yadava tribe as a whole greatly prospered thanks to the war. Because, you see, Krishna managed, in the name of the Yadavas, to play off one part of the Bharata kingdom against the other. And so we see that, for example, this very city, Indraprastha, founded by the Pandavas, ends up after the war being ruled by a Yadava. And so, maybe she had a point.
Thank you, Conrad. That's actually one of the most superior strategies in war fighting from the military point of view is called conflict avoidance strategy. You see that you let the two other antagonists fight it out, you just sit and wait and watch. When they destroy themselves, you intervene. You would see that in the Second World War, the Americans delayed their intervention, and even when they intervened on the side of the Allies, don't forget that till almost from 1943 to 44, more or less the mid part, the Russians were fighting alone. They kept asking the Americans, the Allies, to intervene to do the landing on Europe. But as a very deliberate policy choice, they avoided that landing, and in the meantime, the Germans and the Russians fought their titanic duel. Out of about 460 German divisions, about 360 went into Russia, never came out. The casualties suffered by the Russians are 25 million. Casualties suffered by the Germans were 7 million. The casualties suffered by all the Allies, all told, Americans, French, British, 1.1 billion. That speaks for itself. One of the best strategies is conflict avoidance. And I, as a military man, would think that Krishna, the Yadavas were staying in Mathura, the heartland of India. Repeated attacks by Jarasandh, he undertook what is called the Long March, like Mao Zedong did the Long March in China to escape from that encirclement and annihilation campaigns, and he came to Dwarka, to Gujarat, right? But he did not get marginalized from the geopolitics of the subcontinent. He kept intervening. He made the two powers fight. This is exactly what Gandhari accuses him of. You engineered this war. so that your clans would rise, and she curses him that even your clans will similarly destroy themselves, and that's exactly what came to pass. So this is, I think, from the military point of view, military strategy, conflict avoidance strategy, we see it in action in the Mahabharata. The Kauravas and the Pandavas are impelled into a war with one another, they destroy one another, and automatically Dwarka comes to the top. But I think I'd like to have
Sure.
Aditi's perspective.
So I think this is actually the brilliance of Sri Krishna, which is I think he has this plan in mind, but also Gandhari in that moment, I think it's really just the rage and sorrow of a mother who's lost all her sons and who sees this horrific vision on the battlefield. I think that's where she's coming from, because even after she curses Krishna and then he kind of chides her, she just falls very silent and she's bitter and she's despair. She doesn't have this sense of, oh, I was able to accomplish something I wanted to from a political perspective. But I think this is the brilliance and the power of Krishna, that he's able to combine all of these things together. He has this political military strategy in mind. At the same time, there's Gandhari, who he wants to accept her curse and give her some sense of that gratification, but in a way that fits in with his plan. So he kind of harmonizes the two between them.
I would differ from your view. We had discussed this because Yadavas were destroyed, and the Yadavas you are talking about, they rose after all the Yaduvanshis were destroyed. These Yaduvanshis were the Dwarka people who were cursed by Gandhari, that all the Yadav clan will be destroyed. What were left were Abhirs, who molested the returning only women party from Dwarka who were going towards Hastinapur, and they molested and took up the women of this party who were under the guidance of Arjun. Now again, Arjun couldn't oppose these people because Krishna didn't support him. Arjun couldn't use his Gandhi. This is mentioned in Bhagavad and this is mentioned in Mahabharata. Arjun couldn't use his Gandhi against these Abhirs of Ahirwal, which is Mahendragarh and Narnaul area. So he couldn't oppose them, and then those ladies, they were lifted off, they were made their whatever concubine or wife, whatever, and then a new crop of people who are a new Yadav clan from these people who grew up, and then they later on populated the area. The Indraprastha was not a Yadav capital, it was Hastinapur, which was under Parikshit, and Parikshit and Yuyutsu, they ruled the area. I don't think it was Yadavas who ruled this thing. The Yadav chieftains still remained, some Vrishnivanshis, they remained in Mathura as well as in Jarasandh area in Bihar.
It's like the question itself is like little Western mindset. It's like every tribe is fighting because the tribe word is not an Indian word, right? The Yadav tribe or the tribe, because there was so much examples of Indians marrying, like Krishna married a Northeastern woman. So in case if there are tribes and tribes are fighting to tribes and tribes are fighting to tribes, then Krishna would not be so much respectable in Pandavas or in Kauravas also. I mean, the question in itself is like very middle is always.
हम लोग
question
उठाएं जिसमें सर point that I would again like to, Krishna himself wanted all the Yadav clan to get destroyed because Yadav themselves were in hell lot of adharm at that time. Satyaki and the Kritvarma fight, it instigated all the fratricide within Yadav in Prabhas. And Krishna, when he was seeing all this fight, he just kept quiet. He didn't support Satyaki, in spite of the fact that Satyaki fought Satyaki, in spite of the fact that Satyaki fought Satyaki, because he is the son of Satyaki. So Satyaki means son of Satya. So Satyaki जो है, and Kritvarma fighting, Satyaki fought in favor of Pandavas, but in spite of the fact he was with Pandavas, Krishna didn't support when this international fight was going on. He knew these people, they had become arrogant, they had become adharmic, they were doing all sorts of bad acts, so it's better that they should be destroyed as well. And all the clan was destroyed. Balram saw it, he took whatever his way was, he went to underground, underneath, whatever. So yes, so the whole plan was destroyed. It's not that he he did something and make a milestone.
I just wanted to ask one question. So, while when you were planning your book, you probably would have approached several publishers. That's my guess. What was the biggest challenge that you faced when you approached those publishers? Was it because, I don't know, probably you are writing a book for the first time? Was it because you are a newcomer in the book publishing industry? What? I wanted to understand your challenge because a lot of people here would be wanting to understand the challenges a writer goes through.
Sure. So I was fortunate. I did approach a few publishers, but Bloomsbury was the one of the first to accept. So that was actually relatively smooth, fortunately for me. I think one of the things is I think a lot of us were able to write a story, but a part of the publication process is how you package a story and knowing which market to target, and then knowing all the other books in your genre, how your book is different but still has an appeal to a certain segment of a market. So understanding like the business aspect of publishing, it's something worth the research. And then I think just knowing how to structure a book and things like that. So that part of the craft of storytelling, that was kind of one of the things, the importance of what's in your title. So my original title was very different from Curse of Gandhari. But one thing the publisher said is there's a certain audience that likes to read about the Mahabharata, so you want to have Gandhari like in the title itself. So things like that. But yeah, I think if you just focus on the craft of writing and then know how what the audience is you want to reach and what your message is, then it can come together.
So my next question is, I see a lot of authors focusing on the woman characters in our two major epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. Like as I was sharing with you, Chitra Devakurni has focused on Sita and Draupadi. Likewise, another lady has featured on a few other.
Kavita
So
Kanu.
yeah, so is there a market for these women characters who want to be interpreted in a non-conventional way, going by the, what should I say? I don't want to use the term here because it would be a what should I say, a woman-centric or a matriarchal or a non-patriarchal kind of a context. Is this what people want to read about?
So I think actually Veda Vyasa Valmiki do an incredible job of creating very sensitive, insightful, respectful portrayals of very strong female characters. I think we don't necessarily discuss them as much as we discuss like Arjuna or Karna or others. So I think there is some scope for taking some of these characters and exploring them further. I think a reason for doing so is there are so many, so like whether Sita, Draupadi, Kunti, even someone like Satyavati, very strong, intelligent women who were able to wield power in difficult or circumstances. There's a lot that we can learn from them. So I think it is worthwhile to explore their stories because not all of them have been distilled in a lot of detail. So I think there is scope for that, and there's merit to that. I don't think I don't think it's rewriting, because I think what Valmiki and Vedavyas have given us are fully fleshed out, very rich, remarkable characters. It's just exploring them really, and kind of accessing what's already there in the original. And I think it's actually after them, people have come and simplified them, or perhaps used some kind of misrepresentation. But in the originals, they're very fully fleshed out and developed.
So I don't have questions, but I have points to add, because I have felt very enriched listening to both of you. I've always admired Bakshi uncle. So many years ago, I've been, following where he goes and what he says. And I used to tell my father, "Arey, you must listen to Bakshi uncle. He speaks so well." My father was in the army with him. So one of the things that I really like is how you pointed out the logical fallacies in the narrative, that there were darker people there and then they got pushed down because the Aryans chased them. And if we not only look at India, but if we look at people from all across the world, whether it is Italy, whether it is Egypt, anywhere in the world. Why I'm saying Italy and Egypt, because these are two ancient, ancient civilizations. I have had the privilege of living in Egypt, and in North Egypt, where Cairo is, people are fairer. And if you go down south towards the Sudanese border, they're very dark. And it's a palpable difference. It's like being in the north and being in the south. It's just the same as India. It has to do with the weather, and it has less to do with people pushing each other down or something. The other thing, even in Italy, it is the same. If you are on the north of Italy, they'll be fairer skinned and lighter eyed. And if you go down towards Italy, they're darker skinned. So if these different characteristics could exist in such small countries, why would it not exist in such a massive country like ours? And even if there is migration, so for example, my mother's side, we have an oral history of migrating from Kashmir. Now, none of my family people, or very few of them, look like Kashmiris anymore, right? I mean, except for fair skin, there's little Kashmiri left on my mother's side of the family. And the same, if South Indians migrated towards the north of India, after a few generations, they have turned fair. They look like North Indians. I mean, I have a Nambudri Pad sitting next to me, and it's a big joke between us. Yeah. So, I mean, he's a Nambudri Pad, and during Nambudri Pads are Brahmins from Kerala. And during the time of Shankaracharya, he took them wherever he opened the pilgrimage places. So he's from Badrinath, and so after a few generations, after a few hundred years, they're as white as North Indians. So this totally crushes. I mean, this is logic, this is common sense, and somehow this north-south divide, just people have just let logic be run over by dogs, cats, horses, whatever. And so thank you for pointing it out. Those were my pointers. The other pointer I wanted to say, the reason we are fighting for Sarasvati Valley, Sarasvati civilization, and the reason why the West keeps negating it, like Uncle said, and even Shilpi ji said, there is a war going on, and the Christians, yes, 6,000. They have calculated that Earth, or whatever, the beginning of humankind is 6,000 years. Their whole thing.
23rd October 4004.
Yes.
The precise date.
Yes.
Friday.
Let us I'm very happy that you've taken up this cause and you know so much about it. Please understand, the white man, as we know of him today, he is not going to acknowledge this. This is something that we have to put across the world, because nobody likes to think that they are modern and developed and have another civilization claim or know that they were even far more advanced than us. This is crazy. This is beyond the comprehension of a lot of white people. I remember I had met somebody in the UK, and I told him that the swastik is ours. It's a Hindu thing. He said, no, swastik is not yours. It's older than yours. I said, why is it older than us? It's the Roman civilization. I said, it is not the Roman civilization. So they're also taught all sorts of strange things about Indian civilization, that they were old, they were not as old, and but the fair people. I remember once why I'm saying these personal things, because earlier I did not have matter, and this is something that I'm sure all of you have also faced. We didn't have matter. I remember, and this Brahmin bashing, क्या बोलूं ना, मेरे तो कान से धुएं निकलते हैं whenever I listen to Brahmin bashing. But Brahmin bashing has a reason. Please understand that when Aurangzeb wanted to finish Hindu civilization, what did he do? The first thing he did was he started massacring the Kashmiri Pandits, because he thought, or he was told, that if intellectuals and Brahmins will be finished,
Hindu civilization would convert to Islamic civilization. So what did he do? He would cut off the jinau, he would kill, and he wanted the jinau of the Brahmins. Until he didn't get that, he wasn't satisfied. So they would count, or they would either convert or die, convert or die. So you had a lot of pandits who died in Kashmir. You had a lot of pandits, and it is during that time that people from my family had run away from that 300 years ago. So now the modern version of Brahman bashing is this kind of theory. Brahmins went and they raped. Why will they rape, yaar? But you know what I mean. I mean, Brahmins marry between Brahmins, so they must have gone and married some other Brahmin women from the south. If the South Indian Brahmin is coming to the north and marrying, so these are the kind of things. So that Brahman bashing by Islamists, if you go into the Christian fold, then comes through the leftist Marxist, wherein Brahmins are the most cruel people. They are the ones who have committed the most atrocities, and all of this is continuing. So this is just nothing but a different way of attacking the Indian civilization, the Hindu civilization. As if I can be really blunt, this is the only way of doing it. They've just changed the course of it. So they will keep denying the greatness of Sarasvati River Valley civilization. And because if they accept it, then they also have to accept the authority of yoga. They have to accept the authority of Vastu Shastra. Now, another point which maybe you can add in another thing of your, another chapter of your book. If you take a look, I have been researching on the Ramayana and Mahabharata and the ancient civilizations myself. If you take a look at the construction of the cities, Rakhigadi and everything, you will notice that they are in precise measurement standards as to what the Vastu has said. So whatever the Vastu, have you noticed the square shapes and the king's thing? So I was reading through your book, and I didn't find that correlation. So hence I wanted to point out that if you will take a look at Vastu Shastra basics, they're all mentioned there. And I was, listening to all your points, and I was really happy that I could, there was a point missing, so I'll say that to you. Going to Aditi, there was a point that I wanted to add. It was a brilliant way that you told us the story of Gandhari. When I used to talk to people about Gandhari and a pregnancy of 2 years, and then the birth, and then how 100 sons were made, people used to say, "What nonsense is this? No woman carries a child for 2 years." There is a scientific reason, and you being as a doctor, perhaps.
Identity form mole, so it's like hyperspecific. If now Ved Vyas did an artificial kind of thing. So when we treat infertility, we hormonally stimulate the person. Now when we stimulate the person, there is a high chance of being going into a hyperfecund state, wherein you don't just get a single child, you get multiple babies inside you. And often it might result in an aborted pregnancy, in the sense that it doesn't develop into a child, it becomes an hydatidiform mole. So it's like a lump which will form, and it's like a lump only. It's not a child, actually, a living. It has got veins, it has got arteries, but it's like a disused placenta, you can say. So I have watched some documentaries. So when a child dies in the womb, after a while it calcifies, and that's when I have read the Hindi version of it. So Gandhari is most. So just quick question, because you can take all those things when you go for vote of thanks. So I would request each of you to write to Government of India, to tweet or go on social media and write to Government of India not to share Indian genomic data or sample with outside forces. It was our policy not to do that. It was designed by Lal Singh ji himself, but they themselves gave the sample to Harvard people. So it was our policy, but still they went ahead and gave. So please write to government. No country does that. They have no right on our gene. It's our property, it's our right, and we shouldn't share this. If they have to do something, let them come over here. They can't get the things out of country. In fact, by law they cannot do it. So please write to government not
Even
to
if
share,
they come
not
over
to
here,
transport
they're
it.
only going to create more trouble.
जी
हमने कई बार जाना है। मेरा प्रश्न ये है कि द्रविड़ का अर्थ क्या है?
देखिए, ये जो कॉलोनियल हिस्ट्रियोग्राफी थी वहां पे दिन एक मिनट दस्यु शब्द यूज किया गया है, दस्यु, राइट। इसमें हमने जब थोड़ी रिसर्च और करी, जो ज़ेन अवस्था में ईरानियन अपने आप को दस्यु बोलते हैं, ठीक है, और जो एक्चुअल क्लैश हुआ है हमारी रिसर्च के मुताबिक, इट इज नॉट नॉर्थ साउथ, इट इज ईस्ट एंड वेस्ट बिटवीन द ईरानियंस, क्योंकि जो ईरानियन गॉड्स की इंद्रा को वो डीमन बोलते हैं, हाँ, दानव बोलते हैं इंद्रा को, और हमारे इंद्रा गॉड है, बिल्कुल पोलैरिटी रिवर्स्ड है। तो जब देखिए, जैसे कि व्हेन देयर आर टू पीपल ऑफ द बुक, व्हेन देयर आर टू पीपल ऑफ द बुक, उनमें लड़ाई बहुत होती है। उसी तरह वो जो कि ज़ेन अवस्था और ऋग्वेद, जो थ्योरी, एक मैं सिर्फ थ्योरी बता रहा हूं, आई मे बी राइट, आई मे नॉट बी राइट, बट ये जो लड़ाई हमारी तरफ से दस्यु और आर्य वो हैं जो कि हु आर सपोज्ड टू बी सिविलाइज्ड पीपल, लेट अस आर्यनाइज द वर्ल्ड, ये श्लोक एक आता है।
विश्वम आर्यम, नहीं, मेरा प्रश्न अभी भी वहीं का वहीं है। मैंने आपसे
द्रविड़ मतलब जो दक्षिण, मतलब जो कि समुद्र के पास
हमारे धर्म ग्रंथों में कहीं द्रविड़ का रेफरेंस मिलता है?
द्रविड़
मेरा प्रश्न नहीं है।
द्रविड़ के दो अर्थ आते हैं। द्रविड़ मतलब एक द्रव्य से है। द्रव्य मीन्स जो आपके हाथ में जो भी द्रव्य पदार्थ हैं, रिचनेस। देखिए, ट्रेडिशनली जो भी कोस्टल रीजन होगा वो रिच होगा, वहां सारे बिजनेस एक्टिविटीज हैं, चाहे वो मुंबई हो, चाहे चेन्नई हो, चाहे बेंगलुरु हो, चाहे कोच्चि हो,
कलकत्ता।
द्रविड़ोदा एक शब्द है देवता के लिए भी जो वेद में आता है। द्रविड़ोदा मतलब जो द्रविड़ दे, द्रव्य दे, तो वो देवता ही कर सकता है। तो इसलिए दक्षिण को अक्सर द्रविड़ देश भी कहा गया है, दक्षिण को। अब दक्षिण क्यों क्या है? दक्षिणा, दक्षिण, दक्ष, ये सब देखिए, दक्ष लेफ्ट राइट हैंड साइड। जब आप पूर्व की ओर सूर्य को नमस्कार करते हो तो आपके दक्षिण में जो दिशा है वो दाएं हाथ पे। इफ यू स्टैंड एंड लुक टुवर्ड्स ईस्ट, द डायरेक्शन ऑन योर राइट इज दक्षिण दिशा, दैट इज द दक्षिणा। वही दक्षिणा का हाथ है, दक्षिण देश भी वही है, और वही द्रविड़ोदा देश भी है। तो यहाँ द्रविड़ का अर्थ उस तरह से होना चाहिए। द्रविड़ देश है, रिच देश है। अब उसको इन लोगों ने, ऑफ कोर्स, क्योंकि हम लोग उसको द्रविड़ देश कहते थे, महाभारत में भी उसको द्रविड़ देश कहा गया है, द्रविड़ क्षेत्र कहा गया है। तो उन लोगों ने उसको खैर रेस के रूप में, वेस्टर्नर्स ने उसको लिया है, लेकिन हम लोगों को एक्सेप्ट करना चाहिए दैट इज अ द्रविड़ देश, विच इज अ रिच देश, नथिंग मोर देन दैट।
और युद्ध कभी द्रविड़ से नहीं हुआ, युद्ध दस्यु से हुआ, पाणी से हुआ, और फिर वृत्र वगैरह, तो ये सब तो आ ही जाते हैं। युद्ध कभी द्रविड़ से नहीं हुआ, दस्यु से हुआ है, और दस्यु ये वहां का ईरानियन शब्द है। इट इज मेंशन्ड इन द ज़ेन अवस्था। जी,
ये जनरली विचार बनते हैं कि जब अरब आए तो वो स शब्द बोल नहीं पाते थे, तो स को हा बोलते।
हाँ,
उनकी अपनी डिक्शनरी में भी साथ आ गया। आपका प्रश्न जो है नहीं, मेरे अरब नहीं इनकी बुक में ना, आप लेट मी कंप्लीट, आपको बोल रहे हैं कि बुक में नॉर्मली ये है, अदरवाइज आई हैव स्टडीड लॉट इन गॉड। सिंधु को वो हिंदू बोलते थे, सा बोल नहीं पाते थे। मोहम्मद बिन कासिम में भी सा है।
नहीं, सा बोल नहीं पाते थे, कहने का मतलब यह है कि इंटरप्रेट किया है उन्होंने उसको, स को हिंदू, हम सिंधु कहते हैं, उन्होंने हिंदू बोला है, ठीक है। इसी तरह आप ईरानियन भाषा में और हमारी भाषा में भी कई जो है वर्ड्स में ये जो उसका वो चेंज है। जैसे कि मैं आपको बताऊं, सोमा को होमा, ईरानी भाषा में सोमा को होमा कहा जाता है, तो वो स और ह का है कि नहीं। अब ये किस लिए था, आई डोंट थिंक दैट इज, नो यू आर राइट, आई विल नॉट फाइट फॉर द हेक ऑफ इट, बिकॉज कासिम सऊदी अरेबिया, नहीं सऊदी अरेबिया स है तो आपकी बात बिल्कुल सही है, बट फॉर सम रीजन इन द कन्वर्शन ऑफ लैंग्वेज सोमा का होमा बन गया ह, वो स और ह की साउंड में वेरिएशन ये आ जाता है इन दिस साउंडिंग. व्हाई इट इज देयर आई रियली कांट से. इट्स नॉट बिकॉज द स साउंड इज नॉट.
असम की भाषा में असमिया में अगर वहां से हा सा हो जाता है, असम की भाषा में यहाँ से जाके सा फिर हा हो जाता है कई शब्दों में. हरियाणा में हो जाता है हा से उल्टा भी होता है, सा से हा होता है, हा से सा भी होता है. हिरोई बोलते हैं कई लोग. मैं क्योंकि बेसिकली एक ही बात कहूँगा और लोगों को प्रश्न कर रहा हूँ ये संस्कृत के व्याकरण का नियम है सा से हा से का.
No, I would like to understand that. Then I'd like to. बाद में I would like to understand. Yeah.
व्याकरण आपने सही बताया कि स और ह में जैसे
Interchangeability.
श जो बोलते हैं ना, जो पेट कटा श षटकोण, तो उसको कई लोग ख भी बोलते हैं, ख भी बोलते हैं. और वो पाणिनि में डिक्शनरी जो छपी, ये सारा जो गड़बड़ शुरू हुआ है उसमें छापी, उसमें हिंदू का शब्द चोर, काला, लुटेरा और गुलाम ये लिखा था. असली पर्शियन डिक्शनरी में हिंदू शब्द का अर्थ सुंदर, काला तिल और ऐसे कई दो तीन शब्द बोलते हैं पर्शियन डिक्शनरी.
Interesting.
पैगंबर मोहम्मद के बुआ का नाम भी हिंदी में कहा. ऐसे हम लोग स और ह का बात, स और ह मेरा इसलिए था कि ये ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है कि अरब नहीं बोल पाए, इसका अरब.
हाँ नहीं, देयर आई एग्री. इट्स नॉट दैट वो स साउंड है ही नहीं उसमें, क्योंकि सऊदी अरेबिया स से शुरू होता है, तो वो तो बात नहीं है. लेकिन स और ह का कन्वर्शन सोमा से होमा.
Dr. Cohenredji, please.
Okay, I mean, as a linguist, I really feel I have to intervene very, very briefly. So this change from Indo-European S, which is preserved in Sanskrit, to H in Iranian is confirmed by the same phenomenon in the nearby languages, including Greek. Like, for instance, a polygon of 7 angles, you will call a heptagon. Okay, hepta is Greek for sapta. Exactly, and hafta in Iranian. So this is a well documented normal phenomenon. So the change from Sindhu to Hindu, we really need not discuss that any further. That's really well established. That also long predates Muhammad, because here we're talking about 3000 BC. Then already that phenomenon had started. So that's not the point. But you also mentioned something else about Iranians, about Dasyu and so on.
Dasyu.
Now, it is absolutely clear. There are very many testimonies within the text itself that in the description of the Battle of the 10 Kings, which is always used by the invasionists as proof that there was an invasion, that there the enemy is not the black aboriginals, as some people say, is very clearly the Iranians. All the names are Iranian, of the tribes, of the kings mentioned and so on. Their religion is described, which is clearly Zoroastrianism. It is Anindra. They don't worship Indra. It is Adeva. They don't worship the Devas. It is Ayajna. They don't bring fire sacrifice. Why? They worship the fire, all right, but they didn't throw things into the fire, because it was even more sacred, it couldn't be polluted like that. And so, you see, that is a very important point in favor of the out of India theory. What you see described there is the Iranians located on the western Chenab River, or Asikni as it was called, the Black River, hence the mistaken translation, the Black Aboriginals, which really means the people from the Asikni Basin. You see, they try to go, attack east, where Sudas of the Vedic tribe stops them and then pushes them out west. So there you see the last phase of the disintegration of Indo-European unity. At that point, still, the Indians and the Iranians are united. Then the Indians push the Iranians out westwards, and then Afghanistan becomes their heartland.
In fact, the Indo-Iranian conflict is now appearing to be the central conflict in the Vedic period. There are बहुत है इस पे. We are working on a separate book on this, but ये Dasyu has been clearly located to Iran, and nowhere has Dasyu been related to Dravid. कहीं नहीं है.
So this genetic theory, genetic paper which has been published by Rai group in Cell, it has clearly outlined that it was out of India which a migration which took place, towards Iran and towards northern Afghanistan and Bahalik Pradesh, that is Bactria, Margiana area. So there are 25% to 30% of population which they call as outlier population, which migrated somewhere around 3000 BC, because Rakhigadi sample itself is 2600 BC. So it is nearly 5000 years old. So what happened 5000 years old was post Mahabharat era, and probably this Dash, the 10 king battle, or even in even after Mahabharat, we have tribes migrating out of India. We have Yazidis telling themselves that they migrated 7000 years before out of India. So this genetic theory, it in fact supports that there is some amount of out of India migration taking place at least 3000 BC, BCE.
शतपथ ब्राह्मण, उसमें कहा है कि दानवों की माता धनु, हाँ, और ये दानवों को बहिष्कार किया गया, इनको धकेल दिया गया. ईरान में नदी को दानु बोला जाता है, और यूरोप में जो तमाम नदियां हैं, डॉन, दनीपर, डोनेट्स, डान्यूब, दे ऑल हैव दिस. आयरलैंड में वो दानु उनकी माता है, मतलब वो जो दी मदर गॉडेस इज दानु. ठीक है, तो एक्चुअली लिंग्विस्टिकली अगर आप देखें तो द आउट ऑफ इंडिया थ्योरी इज द वन विच इज मोर क्रेडिबल. एंड व्हाई वुड यू स्टे इन अ प्लेस वेयर देयर इज अ कैटास्ट्रोफे? एक तो आपका नदी सूख गई, डेजर्टिफिकेशन हो रही है, ऊपर से एन आर्मेगेडॉन टेक्स प्लेस, यू नो, पीपल डाई इन देयर हंड्रेड्स ऑफ थाउजेंड्स. ऐसी जगह से तो लोग माइग्रेट करेंगे ना भाई. तो महाभारत के बाद ये ज्यादातर ये माइग्रेशन जो है वो हुई है, विच स्टैंड्स टू रीजन. आई सी नो रीजन फॉर अ माइग्रेशन इनवर्ड्स व्हेन दिस प्लेस इज डाइंग. When this river is died out, a major civilizational river dies out, वहां से बाहर से लोग आएंगे. The basic logic is flawed.
Now the linguistics, the linguistic people, they create Proto-Indo-European language, then Sanskrit, PIE, and then they equate Sanskrit with PIE and all sorts of languages which we see from Europe to India. The basic difference is that Sanskrit is an artificially created language, in the sense that it is a standardized language. The name Sanskrit itself means a standardized krit. It is made, it is confined to a set of rules. It cannot go beyond that, and that's how it's a computational language, a scientific language. Rest all is Prakrit. Hindi is Prakrit, Tamil is Prakrit, whether it is Greek, it's Prakrit. And they change, but Sanskrit remains fixed and confined, and it conforms to a rule. That is what is Sanskrit, which is different from Prakrit. So the sa becomes ha here, there, ha becomes sha, kha becomes sha. That's all in the language of the hoi polloi, but in the textual language, it will remain Sanskrit. So we have, and yes, you please add.
When you're mentioning about Sanskrit, Panini's description itself is a description of spoken Sanskrit, not written Sanskrit. And he, in his treatise, has also explained how this language is different in different regions of the country. So it is well documented in
the words akshar, the units akshar, vyanjan, all they are scientifically tabulated. They are not like haphazard here and there. From akshar you create vyanjan. Vyanjan itself means creation. It's not alphabet, alpha, beta, gamma. It's not like that. Vyanjan means creation. Where else we see vyanjan? In cooking. You mix the things and you create a vyanjan. Some is salt, some is sweet, and that's how. So initially they said कि शिव का डमरू से निकला, एक तरफ संस्कृत निकली, एक तरफ तमिल निकली, but they have set of rules. Even today, if you go to south, they somehow have some different Sanskrit rules. They'll say sha is it will be pronounced like that, then they'll have that ru, and then we'll say ritam, they'll say rutam, but then they are according to rules only. The sh and kha are also according to the rules only. So Panini, in fact, there is a research going on in IIT Kanpur, and they'll come out with it, and it's a very beautiful research which probably we'll see in a year or two, how exactly you can tap and create a word out of that, an akshar out of that, a vyanjan out of that, and it is digitalized. So let's see how it comes out.
You had something.
Please.
There is a lot of assertion of our own culture and our own narrative now. But I see two phenomena. One is this feeling that we are victims of something. That's a good narrative that I see. The second thing that I see is still requiring approval from somebody, from the West, from the leftists, from X, Y, Z. I can give a list of people we still need approval from. And so when we sort of sit here and we make these assertions, it's as if we are trying to prove to somebody that we are whoever we are. When will we go beyond it? Is it not time to go beyond all this and not define ourselves in reference to anybody else? So, for example, I'm very happy to see that Aditi ji has written a book which is telling our story to ourselves. So, why do we still need to define ourselves or prove ourselves in somebody else's context? That's my question.
Very interesting, and also linked to her observations. You know, there is a book by Samuel Huntington. It's called The Clash of Civilizations. You must read that. You must read that book if you haven't, because there is a very concerted informational warfare offensive to, do the other civilizations down. I'm very sorry to state, but it is there. Whether it is the Cynic, the Indic, the Russian Slav civilization, there is a kind of assertion, a narrative building to show that we are superior and the rest of them are inferior. So it's not victimhood. If you are being very, very perceptive, there is a deliberate information warfare assault. My job in the army was information warfare. So it is not out of a sense of victimhood. It is because if you read Rajiv Malhotra's writings, that book Breaking India, there are think tanks in the West. There are think tanks in America. Let me just finish. There are think tanks in America. There are think tanks in Europe, where there are maps of India in 3 different colors. The north is green, from Kashmir to Bangladesh, it is Mughalistan. The center Chhattisgarh area is Dalitistan, and south of the Vindhyas is Dravidistan. There are people trying to create the fault lines along which a nation which is becoming too big for its, as per what the Western people would like or not like. So this is how to fracture it. These are the fault lines, and there is so much, there are think tanks working on peddling these narratives, and these narratives come to you via these leftists, people who go to suck up to Harvard. Once I have Sheldon Pollack or so-and-so has given the seal of approval, I become, I pontificate here as if I am the last word. And it is the pity is that Deshi mindset and that Angreji mindset, हम अंग्रेजों के जमाने के जेलर हैं, because Harvard has said so, it must be right, it must be superior, these guys can go wrong, Deshi, we have to have that sense of self-worth now restored after the colonial era.
So I don't disagree with anything you said. What I'm trying to say is, how do we respond to that? One way to respond to that is to have a way of counter. The second is to assert ourselves confidently when there will be a time when, for example, the powers that exist today, let us say US, which is actually a declining power, but still, when they talk about themselves, they don't define themselves in reference to somebody. What I'm essentially saying is, I'm not absolutely disagreeing with you. The question is, how do you respond? Do you respond always as a counter narrative or as a positive narrative? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very important point that you've raised. So, by analogy, I would say there's the Kurukshetra, as General Bakshi has described. There's the global Kurukshetra, that's clear. But in the Gita, the problem is not the Kurukshetra, the problem is in Arjuna's mind. So, there's a lot of problems in our own mindsets. Now, I've grown up in the US and in the West, and I'll say one thing: in the US and the West, people are very open minded. And if you are confident and you're self assured, then people will be very open to you. There is this problem with forces in academia and things like that. It has to be countered. But there is an inferiority complex within us. There is this need for approval. There's this colonial hangover, let's say. But if you're always constantly reacting that, oh, someone said this about me, so therefore I have to react against it, then even if you say, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, you've been defined by that other person. That cannot be the end of it. There's maybe a phase of that, but ultimately there has to be something positive and constructive, and it also has to be not something that's tribalism, that I'm good because I was born into this. If there's something good in our dharma or our heritage, it's something that has value for the world above and beyond ourselves. That has to be there. And one thing people should look at is look at China. So I just recently spent a few weeks in China, and what is very interesting is they have self-respect. They preserve their own language. In their universities, they're doing original research in Chinese language. Half the papers on AI today come from China, the other half from the US, and they're very comfortable in their own skin. So that also has to come from us. So that there has to be something knowing ourselves in our own terms and our own language, and then having the confidence to put that out there. And it's not going to fit other people's vocabulary or models, but that's okay. We create our own. So that part has to be there, and there has to be this constructive, positive part, and also engaging with others in an open way. So that you need that complete package.
Can I just add one little thing? Rajiv Malhotra, I think, is precisely engaged in this. There are two aspects to it. Purva Paksha is to counter that narrative which he is put out. But along with that, you have to give your Paksha. So what we are doing, for example, what we did in August is we held a seminar in one of our very prestigious Delhi University. It was a multidisciplinary seminar. We put it on the web. We are just now, finalizing all the presentations. We are putting it on the World Wide Web, and we'll send it very specifically to anybody who wants to read it. That's our narrative. And now the next step that Rajiv Malhotra was thinking about is to take this discussion to Washington. Let's get your top people and let's discuss it out as intellectuals, as experts. We'll get them together, and if what you are saying is empirical, is logical, is backed by facts, I'm sure it will be accepted. And we have that intellectual dum now. Indians, wherever we go, I think we are the IT specialist where people don't doubt that you have brains any longer. It's not that colonial narrative. The hangover is what we have to get over. That inferiority narrative so deeply internalized. Why face it, yaar? Where are your children studying? In a convent school or in an English language school? I'm glad they are not. Because that just shows I don't feel emancipated till my son or daughter can speak English. तो इससे आप कब उठेंगे साहब?
All the men want convented brides.
Girls.
You see, this directed to you. To crew, but all this is fine.
But
all this is fine. But today, आज की तारीख में हमको अभी भी जब तक हमारे कॉन्वर्सेशन में रोमिला थापड़ के लिए 2-3 गालियां नहीं निकलती, हाँ, और जब तक किसी अमेरिका में बैठे हुए किसी स्कॉलर का नाम नहीं लेते, जब तक हमें उससे अप्रूवल नहीं मिलता, in spite of the fact that that person is a citizen of America, I won't take the name, तब तक हमारे उसमें ग्रेविटास हम नहीं देते. For this is the 6th year of which the BJP has been in power, and for all these 5 years we've been discussing about Aryan invasion theory, which has been proven wrong and all that. But sorry to say, these things have not found their way in our history books. We keep on talking amongst ourselves in echo chambers. Now it is time they found. I don't know whether young people in our schools of our children, they actually know about what we are discussing. उनसे पूछे तो बोलेंगे
Yeah, sir, you are not glorifying oil. Importantly, question.
अरे forget about
as bad as the
sir, forget about the Veda, there's the Hindu passage. And
No, I think that's an interesting point.
There is a
Acha, I would like to end now this thing.
Yeah.
One is that it's not just a question of having a Western perspective. The thing is, they are powerful people. They are very powerful people. You can't just go and do like that. You are not opposing a Germany now. Germany was very powerful at one time. Spain was powerful, but now today the USA is the new Gunda. So you have to have that perspective. You have to convince them. You have to convince Boris, that Trumpova, that whatever, be on our side. Whether it is Aryan invasion theory or whether it is Pakistan or whatever. So once you become powerful, you won't care anything about it. You can buy, you can force feed, whatever. The other thing is everything has to be built indigenously, whether it's history text, whether it is your arms or ammunition, whatever. So it's not just getting credence for that, it's about wielding power. So now we'll end the question and answer session. It's already 9 now, and I would ask Manushi ji, Neena ji to give a vote of thanks, please.
No, you're very right. Let's take a look at any ancient civilization. None of the ancient civilizations that are the time that at the same time existed with the Hindu civilization have are still living. Hinduism is the oldest living and practicing civilization that we have till today. And it is because, and again and again, the leftist Marxists will make us believe some strange theories about ourselves, that we are weak people or whatever. But the fact is that we have always stood up and always fought, whether it is intellectually, whether it is physically, or even economically. We have always fought, and that is the reason that we are still living and fighting. So when the gentleman raised the point of why are we doing this, it's in our innate nature. We're also because of these repeated attacks, we've become a passive aggressive race. So passive aggressive will lay low for a while, and then they will become aggressive all of a sudden. And the other thing that you said, that you're seeking, you talk of victimization. So a few days ago, I had organized a talk, and I talked to a psychologist on this. There's a very lovely book called The Infidel Next Door by Rajat Mitra. Rajat Mitra is a psychologist, and Shilpi ji had come with me. I had invited him for the talk as well. So one of the things that he talks about is transgenerational trauma. So Hindus have been attacked for the last 1,000 years, first by the Persians, the Persians, or whatever, and Arabs and Mongols, and then we had the white man, the British man. And in these 1,000 years, it has broken the spine somewhere. So there is, and transgenerational trauma occurs if we've been attacked and it's not acknowledged that we are attacked. So the first step in healing transgenerational trauma comes in the acknowledgement that it happened to you. And right? So, and there are 7 stages of grief and loss. The first stage is हमारे साथ ये हुआ, ये हमें deny किया जाता है. This is why we feel like victims, and we're still feeling like victims, because first step of loss is not acknowledged to us. And how is that not acknowledged to us? Is by saying, and you can read this in Romila Thapar and other things, and Meenakshi Jain has put it very nicely in her book, The Case for Ayodhya. She says that this whole thing, how we were brutally attacked by the Arabs, how our women were raped, children were killed, and all the conversions that were going on, it is said, नहीं वो तो आए थे, वो तो बड़े अच्छे थे, अकबर बड़ा अच्छा था, औरंगजेब बड़ा अच्छा था, and Hindus went on a mass conversion with their own choice. Nobody goes on a mass conversion with their own choice. So, this is what the denial is. So it's like somebody saying, oh, I hurt my hand, and you keep denying that the person has hurt their hand and that they're imagining it, they're never going to heal and they're going to have problems with it. It's called transgenerational trauma, because of which most Hindus are suffering. And this is the reason. So it comes out in two folds. One is the feeling of victimization, and the second is when a race is repeatedly bashed, or if you will break the spine, whether it is a pet or it is a human or a child or whatever, when you keep battering a child, you will notice, even if it's a dog and if it's your pet, it'll come back to you crawling after a while. It becomes submissive. And this is the reason why the battered ones are the ones who will go ass licking everywhere. And they'll be the, oh, master, master. This is the kind of mentality that comes from there. I hope I've answered a little bit of your question. No, him. So this is, yeah, please.
Indians converted Hindus political role. We have matches like economic and political with high left-leaning people. We are writing articles that is the Dalit, the Shudras who converted to Islam to escape the hellhole of Hinduism. That is the language we use. That they escape the hellhole of Hinduism and Islam that we have get service by accepting the Islam.
So I would like to thank all the respected speakers. This has been an enlightening discussion, both with the speakers as well as the audience here. It's really nice to have all of you here. Thank you so much for coming. I would like to thank the speakers for sharing their immense knowledge, their books. I'm so glad that people are writing books. I'm so glad and grateful to both of you because you've got two lovely writers here. I wish Bakshi Uncle best of luck with his book. Aditi Banerjee, best of luck for your book. Lovely book, lovely narration. I loved it. A big thanks to Indic Book Club for enabling these talks. Right? If it was not for Indic Book Club, we wouldn't be here. So thank you. And thank you to the convener of Indica New Delhi, Shilpi Tiwari. Thank you to Karan Kashyap for keeping us informed of the Indica talks. Thank you. And thank you, Manushi, for telling us more about Indica, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know what it's all about. Indica Academy, that's what I meant. And thank you, each one of you, for taking your time out and coming and engaging in a very nice discussion which enlightens everybody in the room. And that every time we leave such a discussion and such a talk, we're all better informed. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.